Have you ever witnessed a dog waiting for its owner for years, through scorching heat, freezing cold, and relentless storms? This is a true story of loyalty, about a dog that never gave up hope, believing that one day, the person he loved would return. 3 years. A lonely journey, a seemingly endless wait. But then, with just one small moment, everything changed. Follow this heartwarming story and discover the miracle that helped a dog reunite with his family. Before we dive into today's story, we'd truly appreciate it if you could subscribe to Dog Stories. It means the world to us and lets us know that you enjoy this kind of content. Thank you so much. And now, let's begin this emotional journey. The sky had yet to fully brighten. A thin layer of mist clung to the road, stretching all the way to the horizon, where the faint outline of mountains peeked through the pale morning light. Beside the empty highway, an old gas station stood, its sign faded with time, windows covered in dust and rusted fuel pumps standing motionless. Few travelers ever stopped here, only the occasional truck driver pausing briefly before continuing their journey along Interstate 90, Wyoming. And in the midst of that silence, a familiar figure remained, a German shepherd, his coat a mix of black and tan, ears perked up, and deep, patient eyes. He sat beneath the crumbling awning of the gas station, unmoving, unbothered. His gaze never wavered from the distant road, as if waiting for something, or someone. His name was Zeus. For 3 years, this place had been his home. Every morning he woke with the rising sun, stretched on the cold concrete, then returned to his usual spot, right at the edge of the road, eyes fixed on the endless stretch of highway. He wasn't a stray searching for food. He wasn't a lost dog trying to find his way. He had a purpose, one no one could understand, but everyone could feel. The people of Redwood, Wyoming, had long grown accustomed to Zeus's presence. From truck drivers to the workers at the old gas station, everyone knew about the loyal German shepherd. At first, some assumed he was just a stray, wandering from place to place. But as weeks turned into months, they realized he never left. Through raging winter blizzards and scorching summer heat waves, Zeus remained in the same spot. Nancy Cooper, the owner of Cooper's Diner, just a few blocks from the gas station, was one of the first to take notice of Zeus. Every morning she would drive over, quietly leaving a bowl of food near the station's door before heading back to her diner. She never tried to touch him. She never attempted to take him away. She simply hoped that one day, the person Zeus was waiting for would return. But that day never came. Locals whispered theories about Zeus's past. Some believed he had once belonged to a trucker who abandoned him, while others thought he was a lost pet who could never find his way home. But no matter what they speculated, Zeus never revealed his secret. Over the years, many tried to bring him home, but he refused to leave. One truck driver once stopped, opened his door and patted the seat, inviting Zeus in. Zeus simply stood up, took a few steps back, and sat down again, his gaze locked on the highway, as if the man had never existed. A young woman once brought a leash, hoping to lead him away. Zeus wasn't aggressive. He never barked, never growled. He simply turned away and avoided anyone who got too close. No one could take him away. No one could make him forget what he was waiting for. Who was Zeus waiting for? That was the question no one could answer. On quiet nights when the town was still and the cold wind swept through the empty streets, people would sometimes hear a faint, sorrowful sound coming from the gas station. It wasn't the howl of a stray, nor was it a bark of warning. It was something else. A soft, heartbreaking whimper, a call that no one ever answered. As time passed, Zeus became a part of the town, a silent ghost of loyalty, a mystery no one could explain. 3 years had passed, yet he had not given up. And then, on a morning like any other, a stranger arrived, someone who didn't just notice Zeus, but someone who wanted to uncover the truth behind those patient eyes. 3 years earlier. 3 years ago, Zeus wasn't a lonely dog sitting at an abandoned gas station. He had a home, a warm family, and a boy he loved more than anything. The Walker family lived in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon. They weren't wealthy, but their home was always filled with laughter and warmth. David Walker, the father, was a hard-working construction engineer, serious but dependable. Rachel Walker, the mother, was a literature teacher, gentle yet strong. And then there was Ben Walker, their 11-year-old son, the person Zeus cherished most in the world. From the moment Zeus was just a tiny, clumsy puppy, Ben saw him as more than just a pet. He was a best friend. They spent hours playing in the EUI backyard, running, chasing, and growing up together, a boy and his dog, inseparable. Every morning, Zeus was the first thing Ben saw when he woke up. Curled up at the foot of the bed, his warm brown eyes sparkled with affection as Ben reached out to gently pat his head. When Ben left for school, Zeus would stand by the door, wagging his tail lightly, as if to say, "Hurry back." But what made their bond special wasn't just friendship, it was absolute trust. If Ben was sad, Zeus would nuzzle against him, offering silent comfort with his warmth. If Ben ran outside, Zeus would run alongside him, guarding him like a devoted protector. Ben wasn't just his owner, he was his family. The night everything changed, the Walker family had a tradition, visiting Ben's grandparents every weekend. Their home was in a small town near the Wyoming border, nearly a full day's drive from Portland. And Zeus always came along, because Ben refused to be apart from him, even for a single day. That day, however, the storm came faster than expected. As the family left their grandparents' house, the sky darkened, and heavy rain began to pour. They drove through the night as the storm raged on. The highway, Interstate 90, was slick with rain, and the darkness swallowed the car's headlights. Ben sat in the back seat, head resting against the window, his hand gently placed on Zeus's back, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Outside, lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the stormy night for just a split second. Gale-force winds rocked the SUV, making it harder for David to keep control. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw clenched. Rachel sat beside him, silently checking the map on her phone, trying to stay calm. No one noticed Zeus's eyes fixed on the road ahead, ears perked, body tense, as if he sensed something was wrong. Then, everything happened in an instant. From the distance, a pair of headlights appeared, too close, too fast. David barely had time to yell, "Hold on!" The SUV skidded violently on the slick road, the tires spinning out of control. A jolt of terror rushed through everyone as the vehicle veered off the highway, smashed through the guardrail, and plummeted down the slope below. Everything spun in chaos, metal twisted, glass shattered, screams filled the air. And then, darkness. When Zeus woke up, Zeus opened his eyes. The world was eerily silent. The sharp scent of gasoline and smoke filled his nose. His head pounded, his body ached, but he forced himself to stand. Darkness surrounded him, except for the faint yellow glow of headlights from the highway above, illuminating the wreckage of the SUV. Zeus looked around, searching for Ben. But he wasn't there. Rachel was gone. David was gone. All that remained were scattered debris, cold mud, and an unsettling silence. Panic surged through Zeus. He lunged toward the overturned SUV, scratching at the shattered window, barking frantically. But no one was inside. The ground was disturbed. Footprints in the mud. Someone had taken them away, but Zeus didn't know where. Zeus's ears perked up at the distant wail of sirens, but instead of running toward them, he did the only thing his instincts told him to do. He ran to find Ben. Through the pouring rain, Zeus sprinted along the darkened road, his frantic eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. He didn't know that Ben had already been taken away by rescue teams. He didn't know that David and Rachel were in an ambulance, shaken but alive. All he knew was that Ben was gone, and he had to find him. 3 days. Later, a lone German shepherd appeared at an abandoned gas station along the highway. His fur was soaked, matted with mud. He didn't bark. He didn't howl. He simply sat there, staring out toward the road. And he never left again. The first night after the accident, Zeus never left the highway. He wandered through the tire tracks still imprinted in the dirt, sniffing every blade of grass, every shard of broken glass, desperately searching for a clue, anything that could lead him back to Ben. But that night, no one came back. The freezing rain continued to pour, the storm still raging over Wyoming. Zeus shivered, but he didn't move. By sunrise, the overturned SUV had been towed away, and all traces of the accident had vanished. Zeus stood alone on the empty stretch of land, with nothing but the wind howling across the desolate plains. But he still didn't leave. Zeus had no idea that his family had been taken away long ago. He didn't know that Ben was in a hospital, nor that Rachel and David had driven back to Portland after weeks of waiting in vain. He only knew one thing. He couldn't leave. Because if he did, how would Ben ever find him again? The first days of waiting, in the beginning, Zeus kept returning to the accident site, sniffing every inch of the road. He ran along the highway, staring at every passing car, as if waiting for a door to open, for Ben to step out and call his name. But that moment never came. Day after day, Zeus became a solitary figure on the endless stretch of road. The seasons passed, but Zeus never left the first summer. The scorching heat tormented him. The asphalt burned his paws, and there was no shade to protect him. Zeus drank from small puddles along the roadside, sometimes wading through shallow streams just to cool off. Then came autumn cold winds swept through the small town of Redwood. During the day, Zeus found shelter under abandoned awnings. At night, he curled up behind the gas station, beside trash bins, using whatever warmth he could find. Then winter arrived. The first snowstorm came swiftly, covering everything in a layer of ice. Zeus, huddled in a tiny corner behind the gas station, his body trembling under the unforgiving cold. Some nights, temperatures dropped below freezing. No one believed that a stray dog could survive such brutal conditions. And yet, somehow, Zeus remained. He learned to shield himself from the icy winds by pressing his body against the old brick wall, avoiding spots where the snow piled too high. When food was scarce, he dug through the snow, searching for discarded scraps of bread, eating them, piece by piece, just to survive. But even when he was starving, even when he shivered from the bitter cold, Zeus never left. The people of Redwood soon took notice of him. Some tried to approach, but he always kept his distance. He wasn't afraid of humans, but he never let anyone get too close for too long. Nancy Cooper, the owner of Cooper's Diner, was the first to leave food near the gas station. At first, Zeus wouldn't touch it, but as night fell and hunger gnawed at him, he finally crept toward it, sniffing cautiously, before taking slow, careful bites. Over time, others stepped in to help. A truck driver left an old blanket near the awning. A schoolboy occasionally tossed his uneaten sandwich onto the pavement. But no matter how much kindness he received, Zeus never followed anyone home. His eyes never left the road, the place where Ben had disappeared. There were moments that left those who witnessed them choking up with emotion. One spring morning, a black SUV sped past the gas station. For a split second, Zeus froze. His eyes widened. Then he bolted after the car at full speed, running like his life depended on it. He chased it for nearly half a mile, only to come to an abrupt stop when the vehicle disappeared around the bend. Zeus stood there for a long time, panting, his eyes vacant, as if reality had just hit him. It wasn't Ben. Another time, on a freezing winter night, a nearby convenience store worker heard a faint, sorrowful whimper coming from where Zeus slept. The soft whimper of a dog lost in a dream, or perhaps the sound of a dog longing for something it would never find again. The man silently walked away, leaving the dog to its lonely dreams. Many had tried to take Zeus home. One family drove up, opened their car door and called out to him, hoping he would climb in. A woman brought a leash, thinking she could lead him away. But Zeus refused them all. If someone got too close, he would simply stand up, take a few steps back and sit down. Again. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply sat there as if saying, "I'm waiting for someone. I can't leave." For 3 years, through freezing cold, hunger, and restless dreams, he waited. 3 years believing that one day someone would come back for him. And then, one day, someone finally noticed. Someone willing to uncover the truth. Someone who would change everything. Liam Brooks wasn't the kind of journalist who sat behind a desk. He searched for real stories, the hidden corners of life, the forgotten moments, the things that made people feel something. He had written about missing persons, miraculous reunions, and the deeply human moments people often overlooked. And soon, he would write the most unexpected story of his career. But he had no idea that the most extraordinary story of his career was waiting for him on a desolate highway in Wyoming. That day, Liam was driving through Redwood, Wyoming, on his way to an interview about a land dispute in the northern part of the state. The sky had begun to darken, warning of an approaching snowstorm. He decided to pull into an old gas station to fill up his tank before continuing his journey. As soon as he turned off the engine, his eyes were drawn to a silent figure beneath the station's awning. A German shepherd sat there as still as a statue. It didn't glance at him. It didn't react to the sound of the car pulling in. Its eyes remained locked on the highway, as if waiting for something far beyond what any ordinary person could see. Liam frowned. He had seen stray dogs before, but never one that acted like this. It wasn't wary. It wasn't scavenging for food. It just sat there, eerily quiet, as if the entire world around it didn't matter. Stepping out of his car, Liam headed toward the cashier's counter. The gas station attendant, a middle-aged man in a worn-out jacket, nodded in greeting. "First time passing through?" the man asked as Liam set a bottle of water on the counter. "Just passing through," Liam replied, his eyes still fixed on the dog outside. "How long has it been here?" The man let out a sigh, glancing at the dog with a look of quiet sympathy. 3 years. Liam blinked. 3 years. What has it been doing? Here for 3 years? The man shrugged. Waiting for someone. That answer stuck in Liam's mind, even as he walked back to his car. A dog waiting in the same place for 3 years, through storms, through scorching heat, through freezing snow. That wasn't normal. Liam pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the dog. Then, he opened his notes app and started typing down what he knew. German Shepherd. Appears to be older, has been at Redwood gas station for 3 years, doesn't scavenge for food, not a stray. Seems to have had an owner waiting for someone. Liam glanced at the dog again. There was something different about it. He couldn't just drive away without finding out more. Liam pulled into town and headed toward Cooper's Diner, a place known for being the center of all local chatter. As he stepped inside, the rich aroma of coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the air. Behind the counter stood an older woman with short silver hair, Nancy Cooper. "Coffee?" she asked with a warm smile. "Thanks. And if you don't mind," Liam said, setting his phone on the counter. "I'd like to ask you about the dog at the gas station." Nancy's smile faded slightly. She glanced out the window, her eyes distant, as if recalling something from long ago. "You're not the first person to ask about him," she said slowly. "But I have a feeling you have a different reason." "Don't you?" Liam nodded. "I'm a journalist, and I think this dog has a story that needs to be told." Nancy was silent for a moment before pouring more coffee into his cup. "I think so too." Liam spent the rest of the afternoon talking to the townspeople, gathering bits and pieces of Zeus's story. Everyone knew the dog, but no one truly knew where he had come from. Rumors spread over the years. Some believed he once belonged to a truck driver. Others thought his owner had passed away, and he was still waiting, but no one had a definitive answer. Liam knew a dog doesn't wait for nothing. There had to be a reason. So, he started searching online. He combed through old articles, missing dog reports, anything that might connect back to Zeus. And then, he found it. An old report from 3 years ago made him stop in his tracks. The Walker family was involved in an accident on Interstate 90, Wyoming. Their German shepherd, Zeus, went missing. After the crash, the family searched for him desperately but eventually believed he had died. Liam felt his heartbeat quicken. He looked back at the photo in the article. The dog in the picture, the eyes, the coat, the posture, was an exact match to the one sitting at the gas station. Zeus wasn't a stray. He was never abandoned. He was waiting for his family to return. Liam leaned back in his chair, staring at the computer screen. It all made sense now. 3 years. 3 years of being left behind, unnoticed. 3 years of waiting, hoping for something that never came. Liam took a deep breath and opened his email. He knew what he had to do next. He clicked on post, and at that moment, Zeus's story was no longer a secret. Liam Brooks had written countless stories throughout his career. But the moment he pressed post, he knew this wasn't just another story. The story of Zeus, the dog who had waited 3 years at an old gas station, was more than just an article. It was a miracle waiting to be shared. Liam posted the story on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, along with a short video. In the video, Zeus sat motionless in front of the gas station, his eyes locked onto the endless stretch of highway. Liam zoomed in on those sorrowful eyes, then spoke. "This is Zeus. 3 years ago, he had a family, but after an accident he was separated from them. And ever since he has never left this place. Zeus is not a stray. He's not searching for food or shelter. He's just waiting for someone to come back." Below the video, Liam typed a single caption, "3 years of waiting in vain. Can we help Zeus find his family?" He pressed post, and just like that, a social media storm began. Within an hour, Liam's post had been shared over 10,000 times. The comments flooded in. "Oh my God, my heart is breaking. Someone help him. The loyalty of dogs always brings me to tears. How could a dog wait for 3 years like this? We have to find his family. Does anyone have any leads?" People began tagging their friends, urging the community to spread the word. Several animal rescue organizations stepped in, offering to take Zeus in if his family couldn't be found. In less than 12 hours, the story trended on Twitter and started appearing on major news sites. Liam's post surpassed 500,000 views, and then the miracle happened. Among the thousands of comments, one short message stopped Liam in his tracks. "I think this is our dog. We lost him after an accident. 3 years ago. Sender, Rachel Walker." Liam's heart pounded. He immediately opened the message and scrolled down to the attached photos. The first was a picture of an 11-year-old boy with a young German Shepherd puppy. Zeus's eyes in the photo were the same as the ones staring out from that gas station. The next photo was of the entire Walker family, standing on their front porch, with Zeus by their side. There was no doubt anymore. Zeus had a family, and they had never stopped searching for him. Liam quickly typed a reply. "Are you sure? This dog has been waiting for 3 years. Seconds later, a message popped up. "Absolutely, it's him. We can't believe he's still alive." In Portland, Oregon, Rachel Walker handed her phone to her son, Ben Walker. "Ben, look at this." Ben, now 14 years old, took the phone and scanned through Liam's post. And then, when Zeus's image appeared on the screen, he froze. "No way!" His breathing quickened. He zoomed in on the photo, staring at the dog sitting in front of the gas station. He knew those eyes. He recognized that posture, the way Zeus always looked toward the highway, as if waiting for something. His voice trembled. "Mom, that's Zeus. That's really Zeus." Rachel pulled her son into a tight embrace. She still couldn't believe it. After all these years, Zeus was alive. He was still waiting for them. Ben looked up at his mother. His eyes filled with hope. "We have to bring him home." Without hesitation, Rachel picked up her phone and dialed Liam's number. After 3 long years, Zeus was finally about to reunite with his family, and it all started with one social media post. Rachel Walker had never driven through the night like this before, but tonight everything was different. No more hesitation, no more fear. The only thing on Rachel's mind now was Zeus, the dog they had believed was lost forever. Beside her, David gripped the steering wheel, his eyes locked on the road ahead. In the back seat, Ben sat motionless, his gaze glued to his phone as he scrolled through the post about Zeus, reading every comment, staring at every picture. He still couldn't believe this was really happening. A light drizzle pattered against the windshield as they drove down the empty roads of Wyoming. The dashboard clock crept toward 4 a.m. "We're almost there," Rachel whispered, but her voice caught with emotion. Ben swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. 3 years. 3 years apart. 3 years of waiting. And now, they were just minutes away from Zeus. The sky was still dark as they turned into the empty lot of Redwood gas station. Dim yellow streetlights cast a glow over the damp concrete. The air was still, broken only by the soft rustling of wind through the old, faded signs. And then, they saw him. Zeus was right there, just like every other day. Still, patient, staring at the highway, waiting for something. The car barely stopped before Ben threw open the door and bolted out. Zeus. The dog flinched slightly. His ears perked up. He turned his head, deep brown eyes locking onto Ben's. A brief, breathless silence. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then Zeus sprang to his feet. His eyes widened, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. Something familiar. Something deeply, unmistakably loved. Ben took a step forward, his hand reaching out. "It's me, buddy. It's me." His voice trembled, cracking under the weight of emotion, a beat of silence. And then, Zeus ran. He ran like he had never run before, like nothing in the world could stop him. Ben barely had time to brace himself before Zeus crashed into him, his front paws wrapped around the boy's shoulders, his head burrowing into Ben's neck. A choked sob broke through the quiet night. But it wasn't from Ben. It was from Zeus. A sound so raw, so filled with relief and longing. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whimper. It was a cry. He trembled in Ben's arms, his tail wagging frantically, his eyes squeezed shut, as if afraid. This was all just a dream. Ben buried his face into Zeus's familiar fur, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Zeus, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you." Zeus pressed his head into Ben's neck, licking his face as if to say, "It's okay. I was always waiting for you." Rachel and David stepped out of the car, their eyes red. With emotion, Rachel lifted a hand to her mouth, unable to hold back her tears. David knelt down, gently placing his hand on Zeus's head. "Hey there, old friend." Zeus looked up at them, his deep brown eyes reflecting a lifetime of memories. And then, he did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He jumped up. He pressed himself against them, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Rachel wrapped her arms tightly around Zeus, tears falling into his thick fur. "Let's go home, sweetheart." That early morning, the townspeople gathered outside the gas station. Nancy Cooper, the diner owner, stood at a distance, quietly dabbing her eyes with an old dish towel. A truck driver, one who had seen Zeus countless times, watched the scene unfold and shook his head, his voice thick with emotion. 3 years, he's finally going home. Nearby, a young boy clutched his mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, Zeus doesn't have to wait anymore, right?" His mother smiled softly, gently running her fingers through his hair. "No, sweetheart, he doesn't have to wait anymore." The sun slowly began to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Ben held Zeus close, never letting go, not even for a second. Rachel turned back for one last look at the old gas station, the place where Zeus had spent 3 years of his life waiting for this moment. Zeus turned back for one last look, but this time he wasn't waiting for anything anymore. He had found the ones he loved, and after 3 long years, Zeus was finally going home. The drive back to Portland, Oregon, was filled with a quiet, comforting silence. Zeus curled up in the back seat, his head resting on Ben's lap. Every time the car came to a stop, his ears twitched, his eyes flickering open, as if expecting something to go wrong. For 3 years. He had lived in a world where nothing was certain, where he had to stay alert, where he had to be ready to leave at any moment. But this time, no one was leaving him behind. Ben gently stroked his soft fur, whispering, "You're safe now, Zeus. We're home." But did Zeus believe it? When the car finally pulled up in front of the Walkers' new home, Zeus didn't jump out right away. He sat up, his deep brown eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. His old home was gone. This place was bigger, with a spacious backyard and a white picket fence. But to Zeus, it didn't feel like home. Ben pushed the door open and patted the seat. "Come on, buddy." Zeus hesitated. Then, slowly, he stepped out, moving cautiously, sniffing the ground with every step. Ben led him inside. The house was warm, brightly lit, filled with familiar sense of home. But Zeus still wouldn't cross the front door. He stood at the doorway, his gaze fixed on the yard, as if making sure his escape route was still there. David looked at Rachel, and without saying a word, they both understood. This wouldn't be easy. Zeus was no longer the carefree dog he once was. He had spent 3 years surviving alone, learning to fend for himself, learning not to depend on anyone. He needed time. The family did everything they could to make Zeus feel at home. Rachel placed a soft bed in the corner of the living room. David brought home a stainless steel water bowl, just like the one Zeus used to have. Ben pulled out the old blanket Zeus had always loved curling up in. But Zeus didn't touch any of it. He wouldn't sleep inside the house. Instead, he lay on the front porch, a habit from his years of solitude at the gas station. He wouldn't eat when someone was watching. He flinched at the sound of a door opening, and every time Ben left the room, Zeus stood up, as if afraid he might disappear again. Ben felt his heart tighten. He couldn't blame Zeus. How could he forget 3 long years of waiting? But Ben wasn't about to give up. He would help Zeus learn to trust again. Ben made a decision. He would spend every moment with Zeus. If Zeus slept outside, Ben would spread a blanket and sleep beside him. If Zeus refused to come inside, Ben would sit with him on the porch. "It's okay," he whispered every night, gently stroking Zeus's back. "We have time." Zeus began to relax, just a little. For the first time in years, his tail gave a slight wag when Ben called his name. The heavy, restless sighs he made in his sleep were slowly replaced by steady, peaceful breaths. But Ben knew. The real breakthrough hadn't happened yet. One early morning, Ben woke up and didn't see Zeus on the porch like usual. Panic surged through him. His heart pounded as he rushed down the stairs, his eyes scanning the living room. Then, he froze. Zeus was sleeping. Not outside, not on the porch, but on his old bed. His entire body was completely relaxed, his legs curled slightly, his breathing slow and steady. For the first time in 3 years, Zeus was sleeping inside a home. Ben couldn't stop the smile that spread across his face. He didn't call Zeus. He didn't reach out to touch him. He simply sat quietly on the floor, watching as Zeus slept the peaceful sleep he hadn't had in years. Ben pulled out his phone and texted his mom. "Mom, he's really home." Rachel read the message, a silent tear slipping down her cheek. In the corner of the room, the soft morning sunlight cast a warm glow over Zeus's fur. He was no longer a lost dog, no longer a soul waiting in vain. He was part of a family, and this time, he knew he was truly safe. That morning, everything felt normal. Rachel was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. David sat on the couch reading the newspaper. Ben was outside in the backyard playing with Zeus. Life was slowly returning to how it used to be, but for Zeus, one question still remained. Was this truly his home? It happened in a single moment of carelessness. Rachel walked past the front door to take out the trash. She forgot to latch it. A soft breeze pushed it slightly open. No one noticed, but Zeus did. Standing in the living room, he stared at the open door. Beyond it lay the endless road, the open sky. Freedom. For 3 years he had lived without fences, without walls, without anyone telling him to stay. No one had ever stopped him before. If he wanted, he could leave right now. No one could hold him back. No one could make him stay. Everything came down to Zeus's choice: stay or leave. Ben had just walked in from the backyard, his hands still dusted with bits of grass from playing with Zeus. And then, he froze. Zeus stood right in front of the open door. Ben's fists clenched, his heart pounding. He didn't call Zeus. He didn't rush to close the door. He let Zeus decide. The moment stretched endlessly. Zeus looked out at the open road, the very thing he had waited for, longed for, depended on for 3 years. Then he turned his eyes back to Ben, and in that gaze, everything was there. The loneliness, the long nights, the heartbreak of believing no one was ever coming back. Ben held his breath, afraid to even blink, and then Zeus turned away. He stepped forward, out the door, but not to run. Instead, he pressed his nose against the door and pushed it shut. Ben froze. His heart swelled, his chest tightened, and suddenly he couldn't hold back anymore. He ran forward and threw his arms around Zeus. "You stayed," Ben whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Zeus licked his cheek, his tail wagging furiously. For the first time, he truly believed this was home. That afternoon, Ben grabbed a ball and walked into the backyard. "Wanna play, Zeus?" Zeus lifted his head, ears perking up with excitement. Ben tossed the ball far across the yard, and for the first time in 3 years, Zeus ran purely for joy. Not to chase after passing trucks, not to search for someone on a lonely highway. He ran because he wanted to, because he was happy, because he was alive again. Inside the house, Rachel and David watched from the window. Rachel leaned her head gently against her husband's shoulder. "He really stayed," she whispered. David smiled. "Yeah, he did." Outside, Zeus raced around Ben, his strong legs carrying him forward like he had never known the pain of those long, lonely years. No more doubt, no more fear, no more waiting. Zeus was finally home. Zeus had endured a long and difficult journey, from years of lonely waiting to the moment he was finally reunited with his family. But what makes this story truly special isn't just the reunion. It's the powerful lesson of loyalty, love, and hope. For 3 years, through harsh winters, scorching summers, and endless nights of solitude, Zeus never gave up. He never stopped believing that one day he would see the people he loved again. And in the end, his faith was rewarded. But Zeus wasn't the only one. There are thousands of dogs out there, still waiting for someone to come back for them. So, what can we learn from Zeus's story? A dog's loyalty is unconditional. They don't care about possessions or rewards. They only want love and care. Once a dog loves you, they never forget you. We may never fully understand the depth of a dog's mind, but one thing is certain. To them, we are their entire world. And that's why we must cherish, protect, and love them just as they love us. Zeus was lucky to find his family again. But how many dogs out there are still waiting for a miracle? What can you do to help them? Adopt. Don't shop. Every year, millions of dogs are abandoned or live in shelters, waiting for a loving home. A small act of kindness from you can change their entire life. If you see a stray dog, don't ignore it. A bowl of water, a little food, or even a simple call to an animal rescue center could save a life. Share this story. Zeus's journey isn't just about a dog. It's about hope, kindness, and the miracles that happen when humans act out of love. What do you think? Do you believe in a dog's loyalty? Have you ever had a loyal companion like Zeus? What would you do if you saw a dog waiting for someone who may never come back? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to spread Zeus's story to help raise awareness about love and loyalty in dogs. Support us by hitting the subscribe button on Dog Stories. Join us as we continue sharing heartwarming tales of companionship and devotion. We truly appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much.